Hey everybody, welcome to the webinar. So everybody, my name is Mack Rasmussen. I'm going to be presenting the webinar today. You can see the title. I'm going to turn off my camera so you got more screen real estate. And you guys can see more of the content you're here for. And let's go ahead and we'll jump in. So here's our agenda. These are the kind of topics we're going to talk about today. So our first topic is SOLIDWORKS Manage. Then we're going to talk about a tool that we've developed here at GoEngineer called GoExpress. And it's a toolkit basically that we use with PDM Professional to do a lot of different stuff. We could do a whole, hour and a half long webinar just on that and all the cool stuff that it does. So we're just going to be kind of touching the tip of the iceberg on that. And then we're going to talk about ERP integration, two different ways we can help you integrate to other business systems, ERP or MRP or PLM at your company. First, using GoExpress. Secondly, using a middleware product that we sell called CADLink. So let's start with SOLIDWORKS Manage. And let's talk about what it is and why companies use it. So Manage. So to understand why companies invest in Manage when they already have PDM Professional, we have to kind of understand the PDM PLM spectrum. And what I mean by that is, if we take a look at all the on-premise PDM PLM solutions available from SOLIDWORKS and Dassault, we kind of break them up by, the company type. So at the top of this inverted pyramid, we have smaller engineering groups with only a single site. And in the middle, we've got, larger companies with larger engineering departments and multiple sites maybe. And then at the bottom, really large companies that have a full-blown requirement for PLM. And so if we break that down into products that you can get from SOLIDWORKS and Dassault, you'd have PDM Standard at the top, you'd have PDM Professional kind of in the middle, and then you'd have full-blown Innovia for PLM at the bottom. But this is where Manage sits, okay? Manage fills in this gap between the functionality we get in PDM Professional and full-blown PLM. It's not full-blown PLM, but sometimes companies need more than what they get with PDM Professional, but they don't need full-blown PLM. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So we affectionately call this the wheel of death. These are all the sort of functional areas that PLM addresses, PLM being product lifecycle management, everything from the initial concept and design, through sales and manufacturing and sales and after sales service, et cetera, et cetera. So if we look at this in the context of PDM Professional, you can see if you have PDM Professional, these are the areas that we address, right? So, almost a third of that overall functionality. And this is why a lot of times there's a little confusion of what's PDM versus PLM, right? Because kind of a Venn diagram, they overlap. Now, if we add Manage to the equation, you can see we fill in a whole bunch more of the wheel. So we've got project and collaboration, we've got item and BOM management, process management, and issues management. Now, if a company has a mature, modern, well-implemented ERP system, we fill in even more of these requirements, right? And so this is, again, this is kind of where Manage fits uniquely. And it addresses that need for more capability than we get with PDM, but we don't necessarily need full-blown PLM. So fundamentally, one of the biggest differences between Manage and SOLIDWORKS PDM Professional is that PDM is file-based. Essentially, it's file-based, right? So if you think about something, you have to put a file into it to do something, to go into a workflow, to right-click on to change state, to check in, check out, things like that. Whereas Manage is item-based, it's records-based. So these are database entries that may or may not be attached to actual physical files like a CAD document or a Word document that's a design specification or something like that. So you'll kind of see this in practice as I go along here and walk through it. But there's basically four things that I want to touch on. These kind of four pillars that Manage brings to the table that we don't get with PDM. So advanced BOM management, project management, process management, and then dashboards and reports. Plus, we've got two bonus topics. Now, we're going to cover the bonus topic first. Our first bonus topic is actually tasks, okay? And the reason we're covering this first is because you're going to see tasks kind of throughout this presentation. Tasks will impact, a lot of things in Manage, but, BOMs and projects and process, and even in dashboards, you'll see tasks. So you're going to be seeing tasks throughout this whole presentation. So want to cover this first, but tasks are like assignments or your to-do list, right? Tasks can be used in other aspects of Manage. They can be created by projects or processes, and they help us enforce standards and accountability and traceability. In other words, if you get assigned a task as part of a step in a process, we can't go to the next step until that task is completed. Okay. Again, that's the accountability and traceability. But I just wanted to introduce tasks because we're going to be seeing them like right away here. So on to BOM. Let's talk about some things we can do with BOMs that we are challenged to do with PDM Professional. So we're going to look at a couple of things. Number one, how do you currently handle commodity items? And what I mean by commodity items are things that you don't want to model in CAD: grease, paint, Loctite. I'm kind of making things up, but stickers, decal, tape. These are all things, and historically, there's a lot of different ways to do it that people use. Number one, they leave it out of CAD completely, and they only address it in ERP. Or they try to address it in engineering by putting in null parts or blank parts. But then you've got issues with units of measure, quantities, and just general confusion, right? Because people are looking at the tree in PDM and they're seeing items, part numbers in the assembly, but they try to do a zoom all and they don't see anything out on the screen. So it can be confusing. So let's take a look at how we would handle this with Manage. So let me pop over to PDM and Manage here. So if this looks a little weird, I've got a vertical layout for this example. Normally in PDM, in Explorer, you've got a horizontal, you've got the top and the bottom, your tabs across the bottom and your Windows Explorer across the top. This is an alternate layout. It's a side to side, so that's why it might look a little different. So let's go ahead and, we're just looking at our objects here. These are all the things that are in my bulb. And let's find an assembly. So here's an assembly. And we're going to right click. And then you can see right here, here's my Manage integration. So just like I can right click and say check in, check out, change state, I've got all my Manage, well, I shouldn't say all, but much of my Manage functionality available to me with a right mouse button. So we're going to open the record for this assembly. Okay. We'll look at the bill of materials, right? So here's the BOM, and then we're going to look at tasks. So here we are. Here's a task that I've been assigned to, right? And you can see the task is to add, 3 feet of 16 gauge wire and some thread lock. And then we'll open the task panel. And this is where I can see more details about the task, right? So I'm going to go ahead and check out this task to do it. And you'll notice all of these affected items are attached, right? So all the assembly and everything are in it. And now we're going to look at the BOM tab, right? So I'm going to just show some images here really quick so we can see the little thumbnails by each thing instead of just having to memorize part numbers. And you'll notice that this looks exactly like the CAD BOM, right? So we always start with the CAD BOM as sort of our foundation. We're going to edit this BOM, and I'm going to add some items, right? So we're going to go into our library here. And in our library, I'm going to turn images on here too, so we can see those. So in our library, we've got a subcategory, a sublibrary called commodity items. Now, just a note on this. These are entries in the database that have a unit of measure, default quantities, descriptions, internal part numbers, vendor part numbers, vendor catalog numbers, all that important information. But we got this really simply and easily, in this case, just by importing a spreadsheet that built this commodities library. And this is really common. When we work with customers, we find that they're managing their non-CAD items, their commodity items. They're managing them in spreadsheets. They're managing them in Access databases. Sometimes it's in ERP. And in all those cases, we can take that content and we can import it into Manage to build this library, or we can just get an export from ERP as text or XML or something like that and bring it in as well. So here's my thread lock. So I'm going to go ahead and add thread lock to my BOM, and then 16 gauge wire. You'll notice the unit of measure, my task was to add 3 feet. The unit of measure is feet. So I want to add 3 here. Get rid of that period. And we'll just say add and close. And then when we go back to the bill of material, if I scroll down, you can see right down here, we've added these to the BOM. And you'll notice the icons on the left, they're a little different, right? Those little yellow diamonds. That's indicating that we've added, items out of the library that are non-CAD. And above that, you can see the standard SOLIDWORKS icons for, parts and subassemblies. Okay, so I'll save that. And then we'll just go and check this in. And you'll notice the check-in dialog box is my standard, the thing you're all used to with PDM. I'm just doing a PDM check-in here. And I'm adding my description of it. I've updated the BOM with thread lock and wire. And now I'm going to go back to my tasks. And here's the other integration, right? The other way to reach my managed functionality just with that tab right there. And I'm just going to mark this task as completed, okay? And then it disappears off my to-do list, or I can show, my completed tasks. You'll also notice that it had a percentage complete too. So that's really nice too. If you started a task, you can log hours against it and it'll show you your percentage of completion. Okay, so that is commodity items. The next thing we're going to take a look at is something called a BOM variant. So we've got people joining from all over the country, the US and Canada. And a lot of you might sell your products internationally. This is a really big deal for anybody that sells their products internationally. So let me flip back over to Manage here, and we're going to pick our top level miter saw. And we're going to go open that record in Manage. And then we're going to go to the bill of materials here, okay? And you can see, I'll show the images again. You can see, here's our bill of material, and you can see I've got a tab here for the EU. Now we don't have anything in it. So I've just made basically a new placeholder called EU. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, let's edit this BOM, and I'm going to copy from the US BOM. And that'll give me, so now I have a duplicate copy of the BOM, but I'm not copying all the CAD data, right? So the reason people do this is if you want to sell your product, say in the EU, because of the underwriting and certifications and things like that, you might have to change out a motor. Like you've got UL underwriting here in the US and you can use this motor, but you need a different motor in the EU, right? Because that motor is not certified or something like that, right? That's what we mean by a BOM variant. And so this is just a really simple example, but I've copied the BOM very quickly without having to duplicate or copy all the CAD data. I haven't had to create a configuration in the assembly to try to do this, right? It's a much cleaner, easier way of doing this. So I'm going to go into description here and let's go in and do a search. Remember, our BOMs could be, hundreds or maybe even thousands of items long. So in all these columns, we can do a quick search and I can just type in motor to find the motor. And maybe we have to pick a different supplier, for this motor in the EU. Okay. So that's easy. Let me clear this filter. I'll just clear that and close it down. We'll zoom back out. And then here I'm going to do a replace. So I'm going into my library, and again, I can search on any of these columns very quickly. I know that I'm replacing the packaging, the cardboard box, because we can't get that size box in the EU for that plant. That plant doesn't have access to that box. So I know that my part numbers, anything that starts with PK is packaging, right? So I'm going to just do a quick search and find the kind of packaging that I want to use for my EU bomb. And then we'll change the suppliers here too. Now, I could be swapping out CAD items in this bomb as well, right? I could be swapping this part for that part, this motor for that motor, things like that. So just that quick, I've created a bomb variant, and I didn't have to, you know, uh, copy all of my, do a pack and go to a different folder and change all that stuff. And I didn't have to create configurations and kind of muddy up my pristine CAD assembly either. Okay. So that's advanced BOM management. Next, we're going to talk about project management. And this is one of the questions that we get asked, very, very commonly when we're in talking to a customer about PDM for the first time. One of the subjects that we get asked frequently is, do you guys have an integration with Microsoft Project? Because a lot of engineering teams are running their engineering projects through Microsoft Project or other tools, right? And so we have an integration into Office, for Word, Excel, and things like that. But Outlook and others, but we don't have an integration into Microsoft Project. But now with Manage, you've got a project management capability kind of built right in. So let's switch back over to Manage. I'm just going to create a new project, and I'll pick a mythical start date here in June. So we'll say Monday the 17th. And then what you're looking at here, these are all templates. And what we've got is we've got different types of projects that we run. Like it could be a root cause analysis project, or it could be NPI, new product development project, or, you can see why you'd have all these different types of projects created. But I'm going to pick this one, and I'll go ahead and hit apply. And when I do this, it's going to create a new project. And these are all the categories that are under the project. Now, I'm not stuck with these. I can actually rename these. Like I renamed that to physical testing. I can add new categories, right? Review and wrap up meeting. And then let's take this. And if you look up at the top of my screen up here, and you scroll over, when I added that category, you can see we got a new segment on the Gantt chart. And then I can move this one up or indent it, so that it shows correctly as I would like. And then if I scroll over here, you can see I can add the predecessor, right? So now it's linked to the predecessor. And when I move the predecessor, obviously that one moves out on the project as well. You're also seeing the really nice kind of drag and, GUI interface. Any of these can be made critical path items, just like you're used to in any project management software. But here's tasks again. So now when I go to, say, the design phase of the project, you can see the template automatically created 3 tasks. Create 3D models, create the BOM, do some FEA. Now I can go assign those tasks to a user. And then we've also got some other tasks that are created in these other stages as well, okay? So again, project management, just like you've always used or maybe hope to use. Not everybody has Microsoft Project or something like it, but integrated in with all of your CAD data, tasks and task assignments, affected items, all those types of things are built into projects. All right, process management. So some of you that are very familiar with PDM and workflow might think this is similar, but process management is sort of manages superpower, and processes are fundamentally different than workflows in PDM Pro. So they have a definitive start and end versus oftentimes workflows in PDM are loops. The other, I think the bigger thing though, is we can track every item that's been through a process. And we get a record of every time a process has been executed. So you'll see this in the example here. And of course we can attach affected items, but just for a visual comparison, this is a standard engineering workflow in PDM. It's a loop, right? And we have no way of going back forensically and finding out how many items went through this workflow, or when items did. Now, yes, we have a history in PDM, but we're kind of constrained a little bit by versions, right? And also by people putting in proper comments. Now, some of the things that we do, like a workflow transition, will get commented in the workflow. But again, trying to figure out how many items have gone through this ECO loop would be a huge SQL query we'd have to write. It's not something that we can do easily out of the box. Now, compare and contrast that to, this is our engineering change request process. So it's a flow chart, just like the workflow in Manage was, but you'll notice a couple differences. Number one, it's not a loop. There's a definitive start and end. But also, one of the nice things is we have swim lanes. So you'll notice the originator, the start of the process, is all users. So sales can request an engineering change, marketing, QA, QC, anybody can start one. But once it's requested, it goes under review, and then it's only engineering can touch it at that point, right? And then whether it's accepted or not accepted, it's definitively closed. So if it's accepted, an ECO is automatically going to be generated, and then the ECR process is closed. Or if it's rejected, an ECO is not created and it's rejected, right? But definitively, it gets closed. And then here's our ECO process. Again, you can see swim lanes. We've kind of got a fast track at the top, an express ECO, where it goes from start into work in process to finish, right? And if it's a standard ECO, we might go into planning and review, and change review might loop around a couple times if rework is necessary, and then finally to finish. But even with this, there's a definitive start and end to the process. So stages versus states, right? Stages are those individual things that we're seeing in the process versus workflow states. We have a definitive start and end. And then at the bottom, we've got this complete audit trail every time a process is traversed, and a complete audit trail for every item that is sent through a process, right? So let's pop over to Manage and take a look. So you can see on the left, in the upper left, I'm on my engineering change request process, right? I've got that highlighted. And then in the main body of the screen, you're basically seeing every ECR that's ever come through the company, right? So let's go ahead and look up here, and we'll create a new one, right? So it plugs in who I am, the date and time. Any of these items that have the orange dot by them, you can see are required information. So I can't proceed to the next stage until I've filled in everything. Now, folks, I want you to pay attention. We're going to keep watching this area. Let me flash my cursor on and off. Right over here. We're going to keep watching that area quite a bit as we go through this process. And the thing I want you to pay attention to is, as this engineering change request goes through the different stages in the process, we can actually hide or show or ask for more or additional information. So you'll see that as we go along here. Okay. So let's just put it's originated by manufacturing, and we'll pick, which plant initiated this. We'll put in a quick, I can do better than test. Let's put in new change request, and then the reason for the change and the severity. Okay. Now you'll notice where it says message body right here. This is kind of neat. If this change came in to you via an email from somebody, you can actually, when you click on that message body, go out, find the message in Outlook, and it'll suck in that email basically in this big white space down here below where I'm flashing my cursor. basically the message body will be put in there. So that's kind of nice. Okay. So we filled out all the critical information. So we can go ahead and save this and come back to it later, or I can simply have it go to the next stage. And then let's add affected items. So I'm going to hit that little plus sign. Here we are back in that same library. So this is where we have access to all of our CAD data. So there's assemblies, here's parts. This is the part that I want to add as the affected item for this engineering change request. And so we're going to say add and close. So now down here, I've got my affected items. Now this is really important. Again, if you're familiar with PDM Professional, you understand the whole paste as reference and how that works. We're not doing any of that. At this point, we are not affecting any of the CAD data, any of the file relationships we have built into the CAD. We're not doing paste as reference or anything like that, right? So that's a pretty important point. All right. So if we look at the process information here, this takes us right to what I was showing you earlier. There's our process. So we're at the start. When I go to advance this, we're going to be sort of the WIP or the request under review right there. Okay. So let's hide that and then let's send to the next stage. Yes, I'm sure I want to send it. All right. So let's accept this process. Now that just came to me. I sent it to myself. I'm the only person in the system right now, so I didn't want it to disappear. So I can accept this process, but also notice before I accept it, if you look right down here, we added some new required information to the properties of this engineering change request. Remember, we did just go down to here, right? Now we've added, who's the assigned evaluator, what's the technical feasibility, those types of things. You'll notice the PDM status up there is it's still checked in. So we're not affecting CAD at this point. So once I accept the process, it's plugged my name, I'm the sysadmin, into it. It's also generated some tasks. So here are tasks again. So what are the tasks that were automatically generated with an ECR? Well, we've got to complete a study using the company template. So this is the feasibility study. And then we have to attach that completed study to the ECR. So you'll notice as we're looking at this form, I can check those off independently, or I can put in my % complete, or I can log hours, time allocated against the project, the task. Okay. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool is if I decide not to do a task, I don't want to do that, I can advance it, right? It says all tasks must be completed before moving to the next stage. So this is that accountability. I could just say I did it and then not do it, but then, people are going to come back around and say, hey man, you said you did this. I don't see it. Where is it? Right. But just to keep us rolling here, I'm going to mark both of these as complete, and then we'll send this to the next stage here. So here's the model card, right? And this is also cool. I'm looking at our affected items, or basically our where used tab right over here. And you can see, not only can I see the classic PDM where used, so I can see the drawings and subassemblies and assemblies using that part, but now I can see every process that's affecting that part. So I can see all the ECRs or current ECOs that might be written against that part number. That's really cool. And that's that audit trail that we were talking about before. This is very difficult to do in just PDM, right? And then, I've got the classic where used, just like in PDM. When I hit that little last tab right here with the chain link, that's showing me the CAD relations, right? So it's used in this upper plate assembly. Okay. All right. So let's go over here. And now that we've looked at that, let's go ahead and send it to the next stage. Yes. And now this is the change committee, right? So we're going from WIP, we've done our changes, and now we're going to send it over to the change committee for review. So you'll notice down at the bottom here, I can say all at the same time or serial. Like if I have a committee, I could send it to people serially or in parallel. Again, I'm just going to send it to myself. Now, notice right here at the bottom under change evaluation, right where I'm flashing my cursor, when I accept this, we're going to get some new criteria that's going to be added to the properties. So there you go. So now we've got change outcome, right? So now we have to kind of, I'll accept this. So my name will come on here and the date. So first of all, what's the decision? Do we approve it or reject it, right? Because we're looking at the report that was generated in the previous task, right? So we're right here under the change committee. So if we accept it, it goes to close. If we reject it, it goes to close. Either way, it's going to close, right? And we'll send it on. Okay, so we finished our change request, right? So now, again, this is a running list of all of our ECRs that are out there. This is the one that I just did at the top. That little green check mark on the left column means that it's completed. And then if you look to the right across, you've got the originating department, the current stage it's in, which is closed. Progress is 100%. The severity was critical. It came from our Utah facility, and the decision was to approve the change request. And here's the cool part. That change request approval automatically created a new engineering change order. And again, all that information that was provided in the engineering change request has been brought forward into the engineering change order. Now, we don't have time to walk through that whole stage, but now you can see the affected items here, and notice it's got the PDM state. If you look to the right, you can see it's still at the approved, but this is where we can start to, change the workflow state, check out, make CAD changes, and complete the engineering change process. Okay, so that's a quick, and again, we could spend a whole webinar just on all the cool stuff we can do in processes, but that's a quick overview of how processes are different than workflows in PDM. So on to our second bonus topic. Our second bonus topic is reports. So reports can access any of the data in Manage and format it for any type of output you'd like. Reports can be generated automatically as a result of an action, or they can be generated on request. And I think I've got two different examples to show you here. So if we go back to Manage and we fast forward to when our engineering change request was complete. So we've completed this. It's 100%. It's finished. We've got all that information here. We've got the green check mark showing it's done and things like that. But if you look at the tabs across the top under related files, we've automatically generated a report through that stage transition. That's our change notice, right? Now, this is all done electronically too. You wouldn't have to create this form via a report, but I'm just trying to illustrate here, reports are taking data out of the database and formatting it in a certain way so that it looks the way that the company wants it to look, and presenting it in a form. Okay. Now here's another example. Let's pop back over to our session that has the miter saw in it, and we're going to ask for ship list. Okay. So this is the on demand, right? So this isn't a workflow transition or anything. I'm just a person at the company that needs this data, and on request or on demand, I'm going to run this report. So I pick the kind of report, and you can have all kinds of different reports created ahead of time. I'm going to pick this shipping report and say run. And again, so what we've done is we've taken basically the BOM, but we formatted it in a certain way. So we have costing for all the individual line items, and then we've got a total. We've got the little thumbnail graphics with the part number and the description and a quantity. Okay, so this is our ship list, or some people might call this a shipping BOM, but same difference. Okay, again, just trying to illustrate that these reports are really cool and they can very quickly and easily pull information out of the Manage database, format it however we want. So you saw the engineering change report, and now this is another example for a shipping BOM. Okay. Now that's process management, and we covered our second bonus topic of reports. Let's talk about dashboards. So this is really kind of neat. Let's go over here to my dashboards, and I've just mocked up one that shows, ECR and ECO status, basically, right? Now, again, these are just examples. Just like with reports, with dashboards, any of the data in Manage is available to display live real time. So again, this is live real time data. We don't have to hit a button or update it or anything like that. They're interactive. So if I click on that, we can see the technical feasibility. We can see what percent came from external clients versus suppliers versus manufacturing. So they're all kind of interactive or can be interactive. And then, we've got date ranges here. And then down at the bottom, we've got some information on where these, how many were approved versus rejected. And then we can see the regions of the world that these ECRs were coming from. So again, just an example, kind of cool, but let's take a look at a different example. So let's pop over here, and I want you to notice that little pull down right there in the upper left. So the point I'm trying to make here is you can have a whole bunch of dashboards, right? So sales could have dashboard information, marketing could have dashboard, engineering, manufacturing, they could all have their own dashboards that are pulling information out of here and displaying it graphically. So let's look at our project. We've got a projects dashboard. So you can see we've got all of our projects. We've got all the project tasks, and then all the tasks assigned to individual users outside of projects. So we pick an individual user like Kurt here, we can see, basically how they're doing. And that's pretty cool, kind of micromanaging, but let's pick a group instead. Let's go clear that filter and let's pick our engineering group, right? So now we can really get a sense of our activity level, like how many projects are currently underway, how many tasks are going right now, how many change requests are with the control board. This really gives us a really clear way of seeing our activity level, right? And we can drill down all the way into, the number of hours spent on some of these things. So, but the best thing about dashboards is there's a free viewer that will allow you to display dashboards on monitors that you have throughout your plant without tying up a license of Manage. Okay. So free viewer for all the dashboards. So you can have these all around your office or your plant. And these are all displaying kind of live real-time data. All right. So that was our quick whirlwind tour of Manage. Again, a proper Manage demo, is several hours long, but I wanted to just give you the highlights, the big picture of what Manage brings to the table over PDM Professional. And then let's introduce GoExpress. So this is a toolkit that we GoEngineer have developed and been using for, I guess, decades now. It does hundreds of different things. Like, again, this could be a whole webinar on its own. But we're going to just touch on a couple of examples that'll illustrate, the kinds of things it can do. It's a simple site license. It doesn't matter how many PDM users you have at your company or how many sites. If you've got hundreds of users and multiple sites, it's just a simple site license for GoExpress. And then everybody has access to the functionality, right? Now, it does require some services to configure it for your particular business needs, but after that, you're all set and it just runs, right? I'll explain what I mean by the configuration here in just a little bit. But the four main areas that GoExpress, affects are data output from PDM, workflow enhancements. In other words, doing things that, maybe it doesn't do out of the box. We use GoExpress in some cases for ERP, MRP integration, and we also use it for data migration. Now, data migration can mean, you've purchased the company, they have their own SOLIDWORKS PDM vault. You want to migrate that vault over into your production vault. That's a case of data migration. But increasingly, we're getting more and more customers joining us that are coming off of Creo or Inventor or some other system, and their data is in a different PDM system, right? So we use our GoExpress tools for helping us do those types of migrations as well. Like I said before, it's a simple add-in. Any of you in the audience that are PDM admins, you can see it's just a simple add-in in your vault. And then in the lower right, you can see the user interface. It's basically just made up of actions, triggers, and variables. Now, our developers use this toolkit again to get the software PDM to do things it doesn't do out of the box. But it's again, there's hundreds of different things. We're just going to take a look at a couple of simple examples. So let's look at a simple example of executing GoExpress functionality as an on-demand task. Okay, so we'll create what we call a job packet, which is a PDF of all the drawings in a top-level assembly. Okay, so this is an example of a functionality that PDM doesn't have that customers were asking for, so we built it into GoExpress. You're basically going to be able to right-click on a top-level assembly or top-level assembly drawing and say, print me a job packet, and then we're going to go and we're going to find all the related parts and sub-assemblies and their drawings, and we're going to produce a PDF. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and let's find this. Here's the top-level assembly drawing right here. And so I'll just say, give me an assembly job packet. Now we get this little warning. This is optional. This is part of the configuration. This is running on the actual client, my machine, right? So it's just saying, hey, if you've got a 10,000 part assembly, this could take a while, right? I hope you're ready to go to lunch or maybe happy hour. A lot of times though, in cases like that, where companies have really large assemblies and large numbers of users, there'll be a dedicated machine to process these requests, the task host machine, right? So it's not running on the client machine. So I'll just go ahead here and, I'm getting this nice little warning, but we'll just go ahead and say yes. So when I click the yes button, it's going to put it into a folder I've got defined. So it's opening the top level drawing of the assembly, but now it's finding the children and opening their drawings. And it's creating PDFs. So the process is complete. It's telling me where the output was put. Now, in this example, I've written the PDF outside of the vault. Again, this is a configuration choice, right? And this is why, GoExpress has the ability, but we have to configure it. Some customers want it automatically exported to their ERP system, right? They want those PDFs automatically uploaded into ERP. Some of them want it into a folder that's a read-only folder for the manufacturing shop floor. Other customers want them in the vault under rev control. So again, that's configuration choices, right? Here's another example of configuration choices. When I go to the folder that I wrote this in, you can see there's the PDF we created, but it's a single PDF. Now, that's what this particular example wanted, but another customer might want the PDFs to go into a certain folder, but they want a separate PDF for every drawing instead of a single PDF that's multiple pages like this. So you can see, here's my top level drawing, top level assembly drawing. Here's a piece part drawing, another piece part drawing. And you'll notice the watermark in the lower left corner. Again, this is configuration choices. Do you want them watermarked? Yes or no? And if you do, what do you want on the watermark? Okay, so good enough. Let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at using GoExpress in conjunction with workflow through a transition. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to automatically create a job packet, but this time we're just going to approve a document, right? So again, this is showing data output, but also workflow enhancements. Okay. So here's my workflow. You can see I've got some items, that same top level assembly drawing highlighted. It's pending approval. So it's in this state right here, pending approval. And you notice I've got a transition called release, but make a job packet. Okay. So again, my object right now is in that state. I wanted to get to release, and I'm going to go through that transition right there, the release, but make a job packet. So back in PDM, we're not going to do a right click, make a job packet. We're simply going to do a state change and say release, make a job packet. So it's our standard PDM dialog box, but now, GoExpress steps in here, gives us the same little warning about multiple PDFs could take a while, but then it's going to go through the same process, and it's going to go down through all the references and make drawings of all those. And then same thing, we go into the results folder and we have the same PDF output. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, so that was GoExpress. And again, GoExpress does a lot of different stuff. That's a really simple example that I can show you that I think everybody gets. It's a simple, easy explanation. Creating a job packet by right-clicking on a top-level assembly, and one that a lot of people can use and could benefit from. But again, it does a lot of other stuff. But let's get on to talking about ERP integration. So I introduced GoExpress first because that's one of the tools we use for doing ERP integration. So we have a lot of customers with ERP integration, and we have customers using GoExpress, customers using CAD-Link. So, how do you decide which one to use? Well, there's kind of two business cases why people choose with ERP integration with GoExpress, say over the other option we're going to show you. And that is GoExpress can be a really simple, fast, and cost-effective way to synchronize your, engineering PDM CAD BOMs with your ERP system and, checking for accuracy. It can be bidirectional. It's not one way. But the other scenario that people use GoExpress for ERP integration is where it's a really unique niche scenario that's not covered by sort of off-the-shelf middleware programs like CAD-Link. So let's take a look at that example, that kind of unique niche example first. So what I have here is I have a finished drawing of a product definition with a bill of material on the drawing, okay? And I want you to notice, if I zoom in here a little bit, it's all sorted correctly. Notice it's got 23 line items in the BOM. Now, let's go compare and contrast that to the actual 3D object. So let me open up this assembly. There's the 3D assembly, and let's throw a bill of material on this using the same BOM template. And you'll notice there's only 21 items, okay? So that's a little bit of a head scratcher. So let's go back to our CAD BOM, our BOM on our drawing. So I've got an option turned on in SOLIDWORKS that are going to highlight any cell or any row that's different, right? So you can see all the changes that have been made to the CAD BOM. So we've added a whole column that didn't exist in CAD, the bin or location for the object for the shop floor. We've edited some vendor locations that maybe that information just wasn't on the CAD model. We had to put it on the bill of material here. We've changed some descriptions, and we've assigned some vendor catalog and part numbers to some purchase items on the left. Okay. Now, again, this is a unique situation. So what we would do in this case is GoExpress would actually take this information, not the CAD BOM, not the PDM BOM. It would be this information that would be synchronized and uploaded to ERP. We just did this for a large customer of ours that's running SAP S4 HANA, same kind of thing. So this is kind of a unique situation, but it's fairly common when companies that, have had CAD for decades and then they get PDM or then they get ERP, they can't necessarily retroactively go back and change everything. We need to come up with a process that lets them, continue working the way that they're working or have been working, right? And the solution here was to basically scrape the drawing for the bill of material information and migrate that to ERP versus what was, in the CAD BOM or the PDM BOM. Okay. So now let's look at a simple example of ERP connectivity using GoExpress, right? So again, focusing in on integration. So here's what we're going to check. With GoExpress, we're going to be in PDM, and we're going to check that the file name of the CAD file matches the doc number field on the data card. We're going to check that the description matches what's in ERP, and we're going to check that the doc number on the data card matches what's in ERP. And then when the approval happens in ERP, so ERP is the master here, and that's how we're going to release things to manufacturing, we need to transition the file in PDM, to release status from, pending approval. Again, showing that sort of bidirectional associativity. Okay, so here we are in PDM, and I've got an object selected, a CAD file called spacer, as you can see, and we're looking at its data card, right? So we see the doc number. Now, the first check we wanted to do was to make sure that the PDM name matches the doc number, right? So when we go to submit this for approval, GoExpress is going to step in and it's going to check with the ERP system, and it's going to say, oh, hang on, wait a minute, we've got a mismatch here. Now, again, this is a configuration choice. You don't have to do it this way, but in this case, we're going to automatically rename the file name in PDM to match the doc number, right? So now you can see our file name matches our doc number. Again, that's a configuration choice. You don't have to do it that way. Okay, next. What you're looking at here is I've got my PDM session on the left, and I have my ERP database on the right. And the thing that you'll notice is I've got an object selected. I can see its description on the data card, and then I look at the description in ERP, and it's plural. It's wings, so they don't match. Again, so when I go to submit this for approval, and standard process in PDM, but this is where GoExpress steps in. It synchronizes with the ERP database and comes back and says, hey, you've got a mismatch here. And again, this is a configuration choice, but watch the description in blue. When it's finished, it's just going to change to wings. So now it matches what's in ERP. Okay. All right. Next example is the file name or PDM name with the document name or document number. And you can see there's ERP 19875, but down here we fat fingered it, and instead of ERP, it's EPR. So again, same process. Now I could have transitioned all of these at the same time, and it would have caught all these errors. I'm just doing them one at a time so you can kind of see how this works. And there we synchronized with the ERP database. We've caught the difference, and there we go. So now it'll make the change. So it's actually renamed the file, as you can see, to match the doc number. Okay, last example here is, and this is a little hard to show you because, truth be told, we don't have a true ERP system like Oracle or SAP or something here at GoEngineer. So what I have is I have a SQL database that's acting as my ERP database. And what you're looking at in this top window here with the GoExpress transition is a SQL script that is going to change the state in ERP of an object, right? And so when I run this script, it's going to change the state in SQL, meaning our ERP database, from awaiting approval to released to manufacturing or approved or whatever we want to call it. And again, GoExpress is going to step in there and it's going to make the change in PDM. So let's take a look. This will happen quick, but again, this is kind of my script that is going to run the changes for me and make that released in ERP. And notice the state of this object. It's awaiting approval. Okay. So we just double click this. This executes the script, and then I just do a refresh. And now you can see I'm released to production. So I'm trying to illustrate what I'm trying to illustrate here is that bidirectional capability of GoExpress. It's not just sending information to ERP, but we can get information from ERP as well. Okay. So that was ERP integration using GoExpress. Let's take a look at ERP integration using CADLink. So this is a dedicated middleware third-party program that we've been working with for several years now, and it's for connecting your bill of materials bidirectionally to your specific ERP system with a really nice graphical user interface that's very easy to interpret. So let's take a look. All right, so here I am in PDM, as you can see, um, and I've got my assembly right here. And again, I just right click on it. This is the CAD link integration. And I say send a CAD link. And by firing this off, what I'm doing is I'm opening a live link into ERP and I'm synchronizing the bill of material for that object in PDM with the information that's in ERP. And when it's done, I get this nice graphical user interface. And all of these colors um, have special meaning. So you can see we've got white, and we've got green, and all these different colors. So let's take a look and see what all this means. Okay. All right. So here's what the colors mean. So if a row is white, it means that item already exists in ERP and it matches, no changes are required. If we see something highlighted in yellow, that's a field level discrepancy. In other words, it's not the whole row, it's just a particular field like revision or quantity description or something doesn't match what's in ERP. If we see a row that's green, that means it's a new item, not yet in ERP. If it's red, it means it's a missing field that is critical. We will not be able to proceed until we provide information into that missing field. If we see a gray line, it's something that's going to be omitted from this BOM. Now that it's not removing it from the item master in ERP, it's just not going to be on this BOM anymore. It's obsoleted or it's been replaced by another object or something like that. And if we see a blue row, that's a manual row entry. So let's take a look at some of this and see what it looks like. Okay, so here's a field. And any of these fields where I've got a mismatch, I can right click and I get this really nice little user interface. And again, this is a configuration choice for those of you out there that are, stalwart ERP must be the master. You don't have to do it this way. Again, these are configuration choices. But in this case, I'm getting the choice, 3 choices. So I can use the CAD description, right, by picking that, or I can use the ERP description. You notice the difference is just a space. The CAD one has a space, the ERP does not, or what CAD link thinks it should be, right? So let's pick the ERP and use that just by selecting on that little option in the pop-up. And then what I'm going to do once I select that, got a little lag there we go. I'm going to add some additional information. So again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but my point in showing you all this is just that this is a configuration choice. If I were to save this now, I'd be putting in that description without the space, but I'd also be adding the word demo to it and sending that over to ERP. Now, those of you with sharp eyes may have noticed in the upper left corner, I have a save icon, and you'll notice it's grayed out. I can't even save this yet. And the reason I can't save this is I have a red field. So I won't be able to save this until I put some information into the description for the print head. Okay. All right. So we've got the gray row. That's, again, something that's been removed from the CAD assembly. It's not going to get passed over. But let's take a look at adding a manual part, right? So this takes me right into my ERP system, and I can search in ERP basically for something like a bolt or Loctite or, something like that. And we've got bolt, and you can see all the results. Let's pick one, and then we'll go ahead and hit accept. Okay, so now we have a blue row. The one thing we don't have though is we don't have a quantity yet. So again, all this information like the item number and the description and all that came right from the ERP. We'll add a quantity here. Let's say we need 12 of these bolts. But this kind of brings us to a bigger topic. So for all of our green items that don't exist yet, we've got to specify some information, or we have the opportunity, I should say. So, item source, what's the stock raw material number, what's the unit of measure or the unit type, um, is it make, buy, all these types of things. All of these fields are coming straight from ERP. So it's not like we have to create these in PDM and manage them and upkeep them. Again, this is straight import right from the ERP system. So again, I've said this a couple times, but any of these topics we could spend the whole hour on. But I just wanted to give you, sort of a quick overview of all these topics, right? And the hope is that if you're interested in any of these, you'll reach out, contact us, and we can take a deeper dive and get into any of these topics in more detail. So just to recap what we covered today, SOLIDWORKS Manage. We talked about the advanced BOM capabilities. We talked about adding commodity items from the library quickly and easily, BOM variants. We talked about integrated project management, advanced process management with our example of the ECR rolling into an ECO. And then we took a look at dashboards to display all this wonderful information. We introduced GoExpress, our PDM automation framework, and showed you a couple things that it can do, like job packets. That's just one example of many, many, many different things that GoExpress does. And then we took a look at ERP integration, PDM into ERP. One example using GoExpress, one using a third-party tool that we use and work with a lot called CADLink.